First question, why did you join the Marine Corps? I did almost enlist in the Army. So I went and started talking to the Marine Corps recruiter a little bit more. He was like, well, do you want to wear the big green pickle or do you want to wear the varsity jacket? It's up to you. And of course I was like, oh shit. What was the hardest part of boot camp? I grew up in a very strict household. So like the yelling and things like that were not a big deal for me. The hardest part for me in Marine Corps boot camp was, what was your scariest SWAT call out? So we had some really good SWAT call outs. The scariest, I would say, like anything that involved kids. So we had a homicide high risk warrant that we did one time. I was like second or third in the stack probably. And my name is Dustin Dobbyn, and I am a combat veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I'm a law enforcement veteran with almost 10 years of law enforcement experience and a private security contractor. And today I'm doing some Q&A. First question, why did you join the Marine Corps? And this is a pretty simple answer. It's probably more simple than what you guys are looking for. But I grew up in a small town in Arizona, and in this very small town, there were really only two recruiters. There was the Army recruiter and the Marine Corps recruiter. And if you wanted to go see the Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, anything like that, you had to drive like another hour and a half to go see them. So really that narrowed things down for me to either Army or the Marine Corps. Now, at this time, I had gone through a program to get my GED to graduate early. I was only 17 years old, and I did almost enlist in the Army. I had like a tanker contract or something is what the recruiter was working on. But my brother-in-law at the time, he was in Marine Corps boot camp, and his sister, which is now my wife, had wrote him a letter saying that I was potentially joining the Army. And he basically said, F that, if you're going to be my brother, you need to be a Marine. So I went and started talking to the Marine Corps recruiter a little bit more. Told him that I was a little bit on the fence and that I was looking to join the Army. And he hit me with something I'll never forget. He was like, well, do you want to wear the big green pickle or do you want to wear the varsity jacket? It's up to you. And of course I was like, well, shit, I guess I want to wear the varsity jacket. And I ended up enlisting in the Marine Corps. What was the hardest part of boot camp? For me, I grew up in a very strict household. So like the yelling and things like that were not a big deal for me. The hardest part for me in Marine Corps boot camp was probably swim qual or swim week. I grew up in Arizona. Like I had been to the pool like maybe 5 times growing up. So I was not a strong swimmer. I could get by. I could, swim to stay alive or stay on top of the water, I guess. So the Marine Corps really, those instructors had to break it down. And, this is early 2000s where things are a little bit different now. But, I learned very quickly. I took everything that they said very seriously, and I wanted to get out of that shallow end of the pool to get with my peers and make sure that I passed. I did not want to get dropped because of something stupid like not being able to swim. So I learned very quickly, and now like I'm a very strong swimmer. So, but yeah, that was the hardest part for me. What was your job in the Marines? So I enlisted as an open infantry contract. So basically what that means is the Marine Corps would pick the job for me when I got out of boot camp, something in the 03 field or the infantry field. And that's exactly what happened. I ended up getting picked for Marine Corps Security Forces, which is a B billet for some, but certain people get selected for it from the infantry contract to start out. And I got picked for it. I went to Marine Corps Security Forces School, where I was then selected for Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team. So basically there was 2 avenues in Marine Corps Security Forces to go, either the static route where you're going to be standing post at a nuclear site, or the deployable route, which was fast company, where you kind of deployed all over the world and did all kinds of cool stuff. Obviously I picked that one, and I ended up getting it. So yeah, I did that for 2.5, 3 years, and then everybody still has to go and fulfill an infantry contract. So from fast company, I went to 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, and I became a mobile section leader and deployed to Sangin, Afghanistan as just an infantry rifleman. So, what did you like and dislike about the Marines? Um, so the main thing I liked was that you're a big team. The camaraderie, the brotherhood. You everybody's miserable together. They're all going through things together. Everybody's just in it together, and you learn that whether you like somebody or not, you're gonna have their back. And I really cherished that all throughout the Marine Corps was that this guy didn't have to like me, but I knew that I was safe. If he was on fire watch while I was sleeping, I knew I was safe. I knew he was going to take care of me. I knew I was going to take care of him, regardless of our differences. And there weren't many that you didn't get along with. But that's what I really liked and I cherished about the Marine Corps. Some of the things I disliked is the Marine Corps is tough, man. The Marine Corps is not easy. Not everyone can do it. It's not everyone's cup of tea. If you are not deployed, you are training. You are in the field in terrible conditions, in the worst conditions imaginable, and you learn to thrive in those conditions, but it is not comfortable. And, it's not like I've heard from other branches where it's like you get out of boot camp and now you're treated like an adult and things change. That doesn't happen in the Marine Corps till like later on, till you're staff NCO. At least that was my experience in the early GWAT era, early 2000s. Yeah, there were some very miserable times. But like I said, everybody was miserable together. All the Marines were miserable together, and it builds camaraderie, and you grow closer to one another after you've been through some stuff together. So where did you deploy? So I went to Marine Corps Security Forces School. I was selected for Fast Company, went through all that. I was assigned my unit, and 4 days after being assigned my unit, we did what was called a refuel defuel mission. So we basically guarded a nuclear submarine during its nuclear transition period. So immediately hit the ground running from graduating school, going straight into a mission, I guess you would call it. From there, a few months later, we went through some schools in between, but a few months later, we deployed to Cuba, Guantanamo Bay, where we guarded the fence line and the base there. It's a very normal thing that Fast Company does. It's on a rotation. So yeah, we did that. And then from Cuba, we deployed to Rota, Spain, where we backfilled. Basically, we were QRF if anything happened in that region. We were the platoon that was going to go and reinforce an embassy or do anything fast related there. We came back from Spain, and within a few months, all of the protests in the Middle East happened during that time. A platoon was sent to Egypt, and then we were sent to Manama, Bahrain to reinforce the embassy there, which we did. We went straight to the embassy, secured that, got a Department of the State award for doing so. But after that, came back. My time in Fast Company was over. A couple people decided that they wanted to stay with Fast Company, which was pretty common. Each platoon would, I think, give up like one or two people to stay while everybody else went on to move to their infantry units, which, again, I went to 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines out of 29 Palms, and from there I deployed to Sangin, Afghanistan. And like I said, I was a member of the Sangin Misfits, which was a mobile section unit. We drove around vehicles and supported the entire AO with all kinds of resupply missions, sniper inserts, QRF missions, medical evacuations, things like that. So pretty exciting stuff. Why did you choose to get out of the Marine Corps? That's a good question. So I got out of the Marine Corps because things were downsizing. The military was downsizing, and I had tattoos and injuries that were going to prevent me from doing certain B billets, like drill instructor, recruiter, things like that. So my options were basically stay in the infantry, and I didn't really want to do that. All those deployments, being away from my family, I had a very young daughter, my wife, and, it's tough to be away. And, I talked to my family about it, and they were like, eventually you're going to have to get out anyway. Let's get a head start on getting out. So what did you do when you got out of the Marine Corps? I was very lucky. So a lot of guys struggle. They don't know what they want to do, or they don't have something lined up. It's, they couldn't find a job when they get out. I had a job before I even got out. I was actually still on terminal leave when I started my job. I jumped right into law enforcement. I started in the Department of Corrections. I got out of the Marine Corps on a Friday. I had that job lined up for that following Monday. So 2 days off in between, went straight through the training. All that stuff started in the Department of Corrections, and it sucked. But yeah, that's what I did. I jumped right in. So when I was working in the Department of Corrections, like I realized like it was terrible. I did not enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the people. So I immediately started looking to apply for police agencies so I could get to work in the street and do something a little more my style. So, and that's what happened. I applied for a bunch of agencies. I tested for a bunch of agencies. I ended up getting hired by one. Went to the police academy, graduated as the distinguished recruit, top of my class, and just hit the ground running in law enforcement. What was the police academy like? For me, the police academy, I had a good time. I really enjoyed it. I went to what is called a stressed academy, which means that you live there and it's sort of like boot camp. They yell at you, they scream at you, they make you do push-ups, make you PT, do all kinds of stuff. But, I was pretty fresh out of the Marine Corps. I was still in really good shape. I was still, hitting the weights, running all that all the time. So the PT aspect, it didn't bother me whatsoever. The academy got to some kids, like kids would come to me crying and stuff during the police academy. It was kind of humorous, but I enjoyed it. I had really good instructors. I had amazing instructors come to the police academy and teach. Great people. So I enjoyed the police academy. The worst part of it, I was away from my family for 20 weeks, so that sucked. But whenever you're away from your family, it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's something fun or not. Like, it just sucks. You don't want to be away from your family. What did you like and dislike about being a cop? So I liked the early years when I was a cop. I ended up graduating the police academy in 2015, and from there, I hit the ground running. I had two great FTOs that, one I went to high school with, so we had a pass and we knew each other, which a couple people from that agency I had gone to high school with, so it just kind of fit right in, and it was perfect. But the early years from 2015, the first 5 years were fantastic. Like, I had a great time. I went to every school I could. I became an instructor. I started teaching at the police academy, going to SWAT school. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I took up every training that I could possibly get my hands on, and ran with it. And I was chasing bad guys. I was doing all the fun things that I wanted to do. I was one of the top performers for my squad or for the agency as a whole, and I really enjoyed it. And then, after 2020, COVID and the George Floyd stuff happened, law enforcement drastically changed. And the people changed with it, and I ended up having a little bit of a falling out, and I take accountability for that. Like, it's not all their fault. Things were very stressful. I was on the SWAT team. I was a detective. I was training at the police academy 19 of the 20 weeks. So I was just always constantly busy, away from my family. My daughter was having some health problems. My son was getting sick, having some health problems. Family issues, all that stuff causes, big time family issues. So that's what I didn't like. I didn't like that I had switched from an agency that treated me really well to another agency because, they dangled some shiny stuff in my face. And, I ended up that was my mistake. I went to the wrong agency. But, and the pay sucked. It really sucked because I had friends who were in the private contracting world who were making $120,000 a year, and only working half of the year. And I was making $23.50 an hour as a cop of almost 8 years at that time, as a detective on the SWAT team, academy instructor, all of those things, $23.50 an hour. So I would say that's what I didn't like. But the job is fun. The job is a lot of fun. What was it like being a gang cop? So I was a gang detective with my first agency, which it was a state gang task force. I had a really good partner. This guy, it was like training day. This dude played the part. He looked the part. He was really good getting involved and building rapport with some of the people that he needed to build a rapport with. He had amazing informants. It was a lot of fun working gangs with him. We were attached to like a narcotics unit as well, so we worked a lot of narcotics cases, went to a bunch of narcotics schools and stuff. There just wasn't a whole lot of gangs in our small town, but we would go and do gang details and gang operations like in the big cities, Phoenix, Tucson, things like that. So that was fun whenever we got to do that. But the worst part was like working for a state task force. You work for the state agency, and there's a lot of bureaucracy and like paperwork and hoops you have to jump through just to do like regular cop work. But other than that, like being a gang detective was a great time. What did you like about being a detective? I liked working the complex cases, the homicide cases, the good old fashioned whodunits. That was the stuff I liked working. But being a detective is hard, especially at that age. I was young. I was still like a go-getter. I wanted to get out. I wanted to, chase after bad guys and get after it. And a lot of time I spent as a detective just behind a desk writing reports or looking into computers and drafting search warrants and all kinds of stuff like that. So I was fortunate. I was on the SWAT team, so I got to do like the exciting SWAT stuff and be a detective. So I did get a little bit more excitement than just the average detective who wasn't on the SWAT team. So, but yeah, it was being a detective is not easy. It's hard work, but yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it. How did you get on the SWAT team? So our agency had a testing process. I think most agencies do. So there was a physical fitness test, there was a firearms test, and then there was some scenarios and like I guess a selection process through the team for us. So yeah, that's how I did it. SWAT team was kind of something that the agency I lateraled to, they had it was called a tactical unit beforehand, so they wanted to make it a full-on SWAT team. And I was good friends with a lot of the guys who were going on that team, and it was just something that like I was going to do regardless. If that agency had not had a SWAT team, I would have found an agency that had a SWAT team. I was still, like I said, I was a go-getter. I wanted to go kick in doors and do all that fun stuff still. What was your scariest SWAT call-out? So we had some really good SWAT call-outs. Barricaded subjects, we've gotten some gunfights. The scariest, I would say, like anything that involved kids. So we had a homicide high-risk warrant that we did one time where we knew a 5-year-old little girl was inside the house at the time we were executing the search warrant. So we were taking things very slow, being very surgical and methodical with it. It's kind of funny now, but we were all nervous because there's going to be this 5-year-old inside the house. We don't know who's in there with her. The actual homicide suspects had already been apprehended at their job sites where they worked, but we knew that we needed to execute the search warrant on the house, and you never know. This person could have been told, like, hey, if the cops show up, shoot them, something like that. But and we didn't want to get into a gunfight when there's a 5-year-old little girl inside the house. So I was like second or third in the stack probably, and we start knocking on the door, and the point man's like knocking, hey, sheriff's office, search warrant, come to the door, all that stuff. And the little girl comes to the door and like opens the curtain. There's a window next to the door. She opens the curtain and sees us. And, we're like, hey, so-and-so. We knew the girl's name. So we started, hey, can you open the door for us? And she opened the door, and the point man was like, hey, come on out here, sweetheart. And as he looked up, he saw that there was like a male subject, adult male, standing there in the door, and it went from like, hey, sweetheart, come here, to like, show me your hands, like putting the rifle in his face and stuff. It was kind of funny, but we ended up clearing that house. The little girl was taken away, obviously, and relocated from the scene. We executed the search warrant and ended up finding a body in a barrel in the backyard. So it was a good warrant, but to circle back and answer the question, any warrant where it's high risk and there's any sort of kids or innocent people involved, those are the scariest to deal with. What made you leave law enforcement? So again, like I said, I was a detective. I was on the SWAT team, and I was teaching at the police academy. I was gone all the time. There would be days where I worked 26 hours straight, come home, take a nap for a few hours, and immediately go back into work. Like, that's how busy things were during that time. And I was being paid $23 and some change an hour, and it didn't seem like the toll it was taking on my family was really worth everything that I was going through. So I enjoyed the job. I was a taser instructor, report writing instructor, defensive tactics instructor, you name it. Like, I was doing all kinds of stuff, teaching at the academy, which I really enjoyed doing. And on the SWAT team, really enjoyed doing that. The detective work, I could have lived without it, but, it was taking a huge toll on the family. I had a sick daughter, sick son, problems at home, and, it was just, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze anymore. And I had some friends and some connections who were doing private security, private military contracting, and I was hearing about all the money that they were making, all the cool stuff that they were doing, and only working 6 months out of the year or 3 months out of the year and making 6 times as much money as I was. And I started to look into that and started to work my way into that stuff. And when it came time to pull the trigger, it was perfect timing. So what kind of stuff do you do now as a contractor? So I do anything from transporting millions of dollars worth of jewelry, executive protection for ultra high net worth clients or celebrities, things like that, transporting money, goods, high value people, high value merchandise, work for some other big agencies that ask me to do work for them, whether it be investigations or training or just flat out extra security for certain people. I've done things that I don't want to say too much and jeopardize anything, but I've trained informants how to work undercover for FBI. I've worked alongside CIA guys, Delta Force operators, you name it. I've done way cooler shit as a contractor than I ever did in the military or in law enforcement, and I love it. And I'm still doing it as much as possible, but it's a little harder for me these days. But what got you started in entrepreneurship and made you successful? So what happened was I was working for several different security companies or contracting companies, and that's the beauty of being a contractor. You can work as much as you want for whoever you want, whenever you want, or you can work as little as you want and not do anything, or work really hard for 3 months and then take 3 months off. But I just work. I work as much as I possibly can, and that's what I did when I got started. I wanted to gain as much experience in the field and in the industry as I could. I didn't really say no to any jobs, no matter how shitty they were, how low paying they were. I wanted the experience. I wanted to build my resume. But what I noticed with a lot of these companies was it was just kind of like, pick a contractor, throw them on post, forget about them. Pick a contractor, give them a shift, forget about them. Pick a contractor, send them on a detail, and then you forget about them. So what I wanted was to build something that was like the Marine Corps, like the SWAT team. I wanted to build a team. I wanted to be the best at something. I wanted to build something to where it's a good group of elite guys who are highly qualified, highly trained, and highly professional to just blow these other companies out of the water. And that's exactly what happened. We have exploded. And to be honest, I'd started this company. I own several companies, but this company, the private security contracting company, it initially started as just a tactical training company. I was going and I was training all these people to go on deployments, to work these private security contracts, to work the security details, things like that. And clients caught word of it and saw some videos and some other things that were out there at the time, and they were like, hold on, we want you. How do we make that happen? And it's gone from there. So word of mouth travels quick, clients talk, and we're busier than ever now. Too busy, but it's good. And to me, what made me successful was a piece of advice that I got early on from my uncle, who was a drill instructor. He was a retired Marine. And before I joined the Marine Corps, he told me, sign up for every training, volunteer for every training, volunteer for every operation, anything you can do, volunteer and do it. And I've done that since the Marine Corps, all through law enforcement, all through contracting. And that has gained me tremendous experience, built my resume, and it's gotten me to where I'm at today. So if you could go back and do it all over again, what would you change and why? Man, so I'm really happy with how everything has played out. I've had mistakes along the way, but those mistakes were the things that really taught me, and I learned a lot from them. So I don't know that I would go back and change a whole lot. The only difference, I guess, that I would make is I would speak up more. I would probably push myself a little harder, and I probably would have started this a lot sooner if I just knew it would be this successful, or I was going to be able to take it off and grow it into something like it is now. So I guess I probably would have jumped instead of second guessing myself for so long. Should have done this a long time ago. If you could offer one piece of advice to the people watching, what would it be? Just go for it. Just go for it. Whatever you're good at. If you get a hunch and you feel like, I should do this, just go for it. Try it. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to fail. But the way I look at it is if you fail, you're just going to learn from it. You'll get better. If you fail, it's a good thing because you're just going to learn. I've failed a lot. I've been through a lot. If you guys have read my book, you can see in there that I went to some very dark places, been to hell and back, and had to pull myself out. Every single step of the process was worth it in the end. So if you're good at something, or if you want to do something, just go and do it. Just go and do it. Don't listen to the haters. Don't listen to anybody who's telling you can't or how difficult it is. Everything that's good in life is difficult. Just go and do it. That's all you need to do. Don't listen to anybody else. Keep your circle small. If you really analyze and look at who's in your life, who's a Cancer, and who's actually there and wants what's best for you, you'll see you can tighten your circle up a little bit, and it's worth it 100%. So yeah, that would be the piece of advice I would give you. But that's all I've got. Appreciate the opportunity, guys.